It's starting to make sense why Putin was so scared about the fact that US gave Ukraine permission to strike inside Russia using Western missiles. New reports show that a single Storm Shadow strike killed 500 North Korean soldiers and took out a top Russian general. It's important to point out that Ukraine got the permission to use Storm Shadows inside Russia just hours after US gave permission to use ATACMS. This has to do with the fact that even though Storm Shadows are a British missile, some of the technology in there is American, so Britain did need US permission before they could give permission to Ukraine. Now, another thing that's important to point out is we gotta give credit where credit is due. Putin was wrong about the 3-day military operation, but he was right about the fact that US giving Ukraine permission to strike inside Russia using Western missiles could be very, very problematic for Russian army. And it's playing out exactly how Putin predicted. After all, this is exactly why he was making such a big deal out of the reports. So let's get into all that and more in today's video. Like always, be sure to hit the like button down below. It helps us out tremendously in the algorithm. Here's Chuck Farr breaking down a little bit more about this strike.
So, also always bear this in mind. Putin flirts with this large-scale war against NATO. Russia has the GDP of Italy. There is no way they could stand one half of a conventional war with NATO. He has to be seen to do something, though, because NATO has crossed every red line he has laid out. And also bear in mind, one of the triggers that he was triggered by, a Storm Shadow missile was fired at a fancy chateau in Kursk that was the operational headquarters for the military operation in Kursk. It apparently killed 500 North Korean soldiers, and it killed the general commanding there, General Olkachuk. So he had to do something, and he did it. This is a guy who doesn't have impulse control, and he doesn't play the game very far ahead. But it's key and critical that he chose to warn the United States so there'd be no misapprehensions, because it was a dangerous thing to do.
I guess that's the perfect segue, because in the TV statement, he does say that he might target the Poland bases that NATO has. Is there any chance of that?
No, there isn't. And the THAAD missile, which is a more capable type of missile than the Patriot, one of the positions in Poland that so offends Putin, there is a U.S. Navy station called Aegis Ashore. It has the sensors and weapons that an Aegis class cruiser has. Aegis cruisers can intercept ballistic missiles. Every time Rocket Man in North Korea fires a missile over Japan, there is an Aegis class cruiser in the Pacific watching that missile. And if it looks like it's going to hit Japan, they will take it out. So that Aegis capability in Poland, which is designed to protect the nation of Poland, and again, this is manned by regular U.S. Navy personnel. It is a U.S. naval station. He can't abide that, because that Aegis Ashore station was one of the stations that detected this launch, did the math, and knew exactly where the missile was going to hit, even before it got to its MIRV bus stage. So Putin doesn't like that, and I hope he gets used to it.
Recently, they are getting JASSMs, at least there are reports about that, right? That they have much longer range. That should have bigger impact.
Yeah, that's going to happen as well. The United States is keeping Ukraine on a really tight leash, and I'm not sure that leash is going to remain this tight for that long. Every one of these Ukrainian attacks, for example, when they hit Crimea, I am always looking for successful attacks on S-300 and S-400 Russian air defense south of the Dnipro River. And listeners, watch for that as well, because the Ukrainians always, 100% of the time, follow those strikes up with attacks on occupied Crimea. So they have a variety of tools to use, right? You fire a great big ATACMS, it goes up a couple 100,000 feet in the air and comes down. But the Ukrainians will also time that impact. The slower moving drones are going to close in on the radars first and start taking out the sensors. And then all the Russians can do is put their fingers in their ears and try to guess where the ATACMS is going to land. Ukraine is very, very good at doing that.
And the last question, this little bit provocative. Do you think the West can survive a nuclear exchange? Someone asked that.
You know what? There just isn't going to be a nuclear exchange. It simply is not going to happen. There's that political cartoon going around. It shows Putin with a gun to his head saying, I'll do it. It isn't going to happen. But it's so important for Russia to get people to think that that's even possible, because it isn't. The other thing is, Putin is really rising the tiger, right? He has surrounded himself with all these oligarchs, and they realize that as much as he has given them, he can take it away from anyone whenever he wants. If they are convinced that he is going to push the nuclear button, are they going to stand by and watch? No, I don't think so either. What about my 700-foot yacht in the Mediterranean? What about my Swedish girlfriend? What about the $1 billion I have in Switzerland? This is a real concern, right? He's not going to end the world. He just isn't. But it's so important for him to wave the boogeyman around, because it is. It is frightening.
It works.
Yeah, it works.